Graduated from college less than a year beforehand, and that was the day I moved down to Costa Rica and started life on the mission field. And so March 19th of this year was a special day for me because 10 years is quite a chunk of your life when you're only 32. So very significant year for me, and I'm just so grateful to God for His faithfulness to me. And the last 10 years have been far from easy, but God has been faithful. He has been good through it all, and throughout all the different ministries that I've served and different roles that I've had, all that I've been through, the Lord has been with me through it all. He has been good, and that's really all I can say is just glory and thanks and praise be to God for that. So up on the left-hand side, you have me 10 years ago with less hair and more fat. And this is me now. This was exactly March 19th. You might recognize the picture from the Tico Tuesday I sent out that day. But it's a joyous year of celebration for sure. And so these are now my coworkers. I think the last time I was here I showed you a picture of my coworkers, and there are now quite a few more people in this picture. This is the executive pastoral team of Vida Abundante Heredia, which means Abundant Life Heredia. Heredia is the province that we live in and serve in. It's just on the north side of San Jose, the capital. So we are still part of the greater metropolitan area, but we are on the north side and getting to where it's a little bit nicer and not quite so crowded with traffic. So this picture includes the executive pastoral team, it includes our administrative staff, and the young lady right behind me is a fabulous volunteer who is Costa Rican, but she's also a missionary. She was just in Mexico for about a year or so, and now she's in Costa Rica for a time and figuring out what her next steps are. She's thinking about Brazil, but she also has a heart for Africa, so we'll be seeing how God leads. And so yeah, that includes our receptionist, and the other gringa looking lady in the middle there is indeed a gringa, and she is not on staff at church. She's a volunteer at Saddleback Church, and she was giving us a training a couple weeks ago. So I wanted to give you a recent picture with everyone, and she's bonus. She's lovely. And this is also, I've been the small group coordinator at Vida Abundante Heredia for 3.5 years now. And it's actually the longest I've ever held a job before. Everything else has been a couple years here, a couple years there. But 3.5 years, I'm like, this is a new record. And I'm grateful. It's a great place to be. It's a very demanding role. It's a very demanding job. We're a church of about 1,500 people now, and there is so much work to be done. But we're there and plugging along. Thanks be to God, our church has been continuing to grow. This was at a family weekend we had just a couple weeks ago. 4 times a year we do a big family weekend, and we do baptisms and celebrate that all together. And so this is, I can't tell you which service it is, but at our 11 o'clock service on Sunday mornings, we're averaging over 500 people. And so, yeah, there's quite a traffic jam just to get out of church. But also, you can see the camera up there on the left-hand side. We've also started live streaming our services. And so I think we've been doing that for at least a year now, and allowing people the opportunity to worship with us from afar or from nearby, you know, if they're sick that day and can't make it to church, or if they're traveling and, you know, they want to worship that way. But we also just have people, we've had people from up to 22 different countries join us for worship, which is mind-blowing. But we're grateful for the work that God is doing. And so September of last year, we actually opened our 4th service. We used to just have 3 services a weekend, and now we're up to 4. And just continuing to fill up that space and trying to encourage people to go to the services with fewer people. But we're grateful for the growth that is occurring. I did a kind of a census of small groups at one point last year during one of our series, and we had about 800 people involved in small groups, and we've had up to about 115 small groups. The number fluctuates, so I normally say like, well, around 100, 110, because groups are always opening and closing and things happening, but that's kind of what we're averaging now. And so we're still working on creating more a culture of small groups in our church. We say that we want to be a church of small groups and not just a church with small groups. We really want small groups to be the heart, the core of all we do. But I feel like we still have a ways to go before that's really true. So this is one small group, and small groups vary in size. Some are more like, 3, 4, 5 people, and we have one small group that, almost 30 people go to it, and it's like, guys, that's not really a small group. But then I encourage them to break up into subgroups for their discussion time so everyone can have the opportunity to participate and share. But this small group, this is the facilitator down here on the bottom, and her husband is the dark-skinned man squatting down. He's actually a professional soccer player, and she loves her small group. Her name is Dixie, and she is so excited about her small group, and she comes to the trainings. And at a recent event that we had, she told me, I want to make a little suite for everyone who comes. She makes like little sweet or dessert tables for weddings and that kind of thing. That's kind of a little side job that she has. And she said, I want to make something for everyone who comes, so tell me how many people are coming. And I'm so excited, I can't wait, it's going to be great. And that's just the kind of thing that is so encouraging to me, to have people that are really excited about their small groups and excited about what God is doing, and as a small group facilitator, someone who is excited to continue to learn and grow and be a better facilitator every day. Some facilitators are just kind of more like, leave me alone, I'll just do it my way. And I'm like, no, but really, let me invest in you, please. So she is an easier one to kind of shepherd along there, and I'm very grateful for her. This is another one of our small groups. This group actually meets at church. This is our cafeteria, but it's also just kind of like a multi-use meeting space. And several of the people in the group are more elderly. The lady with the kid, obviously, is an exception to that. But we have a ministry for the elderly at my church, and they have monthly gatherings. And this small group was kind of born out of that ministry, saying, we want to have a small group. We want to be a small group together. And so they're like 4 ladies in blue, but the lady in blue next to the little boy in red is the facilitator of that group. And she also is involved in our fellowship ministry at church, and she's also quite gung-ho, and I want to go to the training, and this is what's going on in my group. And so it's really great to see these groups working well. There are a couple new things that we've started implementing in the area of small groups, and over the past 6 months or so. This year we've kind of started implementing a few new things. One of those is community leaders. These are people that help to support, encourage, and pray for small group facilitators, because with over 100 facilitators, I cannot provide each of them with the adequate support that they need. It's just too much. When there were only 60, 80 of them, I pretty much knew them all by name and could recognize them and talk with them. But getting to be over 100, it's more than I can handle. And so this is a group of volunteers, and it's not all of them. And but I have, I believe, 6 community leaders now. Each one is assigned to no more than 15 small group facilitators, and it is their job to build relationship with the facilitators they're accompanying, and to say, how can I be praying for you, and how are things going in your group, and are you guys working on balancing the 5 purposes, because we use the purpose-driven model, and so are you guys doing that? what needs do you have? How can I support you? And just encouraging them. You're being the first line of defense, so I don't have 100 facilitators coming to me and asking me the same questions. I say, go to your community leader first. And then if they need to raise it up a level, then I'll be happy to help. So it's been a huge blessing to work with these community leaders and get to know them a little bit, because the idea is for it to all trickle down. And so I'm wanting to invest in the community leaders and love on them and get to know them and listen to them and hear how they're doing. And I'm trying to build the same kind of relationship with them that I am encouraging them to build with the facilitators. Meeting with them from time to time, learning about their families, asking how they're doing, praying for them, sending them a note of encouragement, a verse from time to time. And the goal is for them to do that with the small group facilitators they're accompanying, because that's what we want the facilitators to do with the members of their small group. Because being a church of 1,500 people, and only, in the picture I showed before of our staff, there are only 9 of us now that are part of the executive pastoral team, really doing more kind of pastoring work. And 9 people cannot pastor 1,500 people well. It's just impossible. And so we're saying that pastoral care happens in small groups. We want people to be well connected, to be a part of a small group, so they can have a place where they can ask questions, where they can share what's going on in their lives and what's weighing on their heart, where they can just have a space to sit there and cry, where they can have people to call when a close family member dies or when someone is sick, and say, hey, I need prayer, I need support. So we're really trying to encourage everyone to get plugged in and be a part of a small group and not just be a face in the crowd that comes and goes on the weekends. And so we're trying to just trickle that down and encourage people to continue to practice all the one another's together, right? And just be a healthy body of Christ together. So the community leaders is one new thing that we've started implementing. And then another thing that we've started is the standardization of our training process. Before, we would have, my first year, we did 7 trainings in a year and said, come to every training. And that's a lot for people. And so then we said, well, we're going to do these training retreats. So now come to those, and we'll have 3 of those a year. But that's still asking a lot of people. And, with people having to commute back and forth to San Jose, with people having their families, with people having their job, people are busy. People have a lot going on. And so to try to ask for a lot of commitments from people is tricky. And, we want people to really be committed to what they're doing. And so this year we're saying, okay, we're going to have basic training. We're going to have GP1. GP is Grupos Pequeños. We'll have GP1, we'll have GP2, and then we'll have an annual seminar. And that's it. Every year you come to the seminar, we'll kind of refresh you, encourage you, give you some new tips and ideas, maybe touch on some issues that frequently come up in questions that are asked and whatnot. And that'll be all. And you'll have your relationship with your community leader, and I send out a little video of 1 minute per week. We send out a monthly bulletin. So they're always receiving tips and training and encouragement and whatnot. But in terms of commitments where they're at, where we're asking them to come, dedicate several hours of their day, we're trying to reduce that. And so this was our first group to do GP1. We're working on getting GP2 going, and hopefully July 27th will be the first time we do that, but I need to study a lot in the meantime. So this is some of the facilitators that took that first training. And things like that take time. Introducing changes, it takes time for people to understand what's really going on. Oh, you want me to take this training? Even though I've already been to all these other trainings that you've done? Yes, please come to the training. We want to get everyone on the same page and using the same language and kind of functioning in the same way. Each group is unique, and we do 2 series a year, and so those are with DVD curriculums that we use, our curricula, And so it's usually a 6-week study, and the sermons will complement, you know, what you see on the DVD in your small group. And we do that usually starting March, so like March, April, and then like August, September. We do that. Sheesh, Ron. It's okay. There's grace for you. So, yeah, we're doing GP1, and I totally lost my train of thought now, but that's all right. Oh yeah, so people are adapting. They're learning. It takes time to adapt to change, and so they'll catch on eventually. We'll get there. And so these are the people that came to our first annual seminar this year, and it was a great group of people. We did a couple different workshops. We had just a rich time of worship together. This is Rudy, our head pastor here in the front. He is like the king of selfies. And he came and was able to share as well, and that was really good, because in order to develop more a culture of small groups, your pastor has to be on board with it. Like, you really need high buy-in from your upper leadership and the pastoral staff. And so for Rudy to come and encourage them and remind them how important their role is was really significant and encouraging. And so we were really grateful that he was able to join us. And so those are some of the new things that have been going on. There's Rudy again, my head pastor, and then these two other ladies with me. That's the small groups team at my church right now. We had a few more ladies on the team in the past. Still never had any men on the team. I'm working on that. But it was a little bit hard and sad for the women that were on the team to step down, but God was calling them into other ministries. And now actually with this current team, I feel like we're finally starting to meld together more and to have a better understanding of each other, and just we're learning to work together better. You know, it kind of takes time to be able to build a good level of trust and to be able to understand each other. And so I'm really grateful for these women. This lady here, she is my right arm when it comes to all things small groups. They're both just volunteers, but they're amazing ladies. And this one, Vanessa, she does so much. We use a cell phone that's just for small groups, and she manages the cell phone, and she sends out all the text messages that I send, and she also coordinates our stand. We have a table in the lobby every weekend. Before and after every service, there's always a volunteer there ready to help people either open or join a small group. And so she does all the coordination for that. She often helps with a lot of other things. If I say, can somebody help with this? She'll say, I'll do it. And so she's just been a great blessing for me. And as I look to someday in the future, my hope, my desire is to work myself out of a job. And she's someone that I would love to be able to pass this along to. So I'd love to have you be praying about that. And that God would just bring all that about in His timing. That's kind of the ministry update aspect of things. I'd also like to share with you just some of the life lessons that I'm learning, some of the things that God has been doing in my life over the past, I guess, year and a half or so since I was last able to be here sharing with you. One thing God was really convicting me of earlier this year is just the power of relationship and how important it is to put people first. I mean, obviously, God first, above all else. But then not to let tasks or performance or to-do lists get above people. Because the foundation of ministry, and especially of small groups, but really I would say the whole church, the foundation of it all is relationship. It's through relationships, you know, that we grow and are transformed. And so God was really kind of beating me over the head saying, hey, like, chill out. Don't stress so much about, you know, having things be done perfectly and just your way. Learn to let go a little more. Learn to trust me and invest more in the relationships, because the relationships are the work that matters. It's not about the tasks getting done, but what matters are the relationships. And I mean, that works for me. I love people, but sometimes I can let the task get in the way and kind of run over people in the meantime. And so I'm learning. I'm not there yet, but I'm learning a little bit more to invest more in people. And actually in the GP1 training, one thing that I teach in it is kind of a little formula. How we start, we build relationships with people and we spend time with them. You get to know someone by spending time with that person. You spend a time together, you make memories, you get to know each other as you spend time together. You observe each other, you see, how each other responds and reacts and handles different situations. And so as you spend time together, you build trust. And you say, okay, now that I've spent enough time with this person, I will trust them, to look after my house while I'm gone, or to water my plants, or I will trust them, by telling them about this situation that has me a little sad, or I'm going to bare my heart to them and tell them about this thing that's breaking my heart. You build trust over time, and when there's trust in a relationship, then you're able to speak truth. Because if there's no foundation of trust in a relationship, the truth will not be perhaps well taken or well accepted, or not as well received, as if there were a greater basis of trust. And so you spend time, you build trust, and then you're able to speak truth into one another's lives, and that is what leads to transformation. And we can see it in our own relationship with God, right? We spend time with Him, we learn to trust Him. His truth, is spoken into our lives through His Word, through sermons, through teaching, through books, through, small groups, etc. And as truth is spoken into our lives, we're transformed. God transforms us by His truth. And so learning this and applying it in my own personal relationships and my small group, with my team, with my coworkers, has been a really valuable lesson for me, for sure. And that's what it's about, just growing together. These are a few people in my small group. This was in December, and I was asked to go and share a message at the church plant that we have at a drug rehab center. And so I was able to share that morning, and several people from my small group were able to come along with me and get to see the place and what it was like, and it was a really great time. And just one of those good bonding experiences, getting to share together and learning to be more vulnerable and share with one another. So that was a really special time. Another thing that God has been teaching me, He just reminds me over and over again, like, it's not about you, the work is mine. Because I work so hard. I'm a very, very hard worker. But I have to remember that the work is the Lord's. He is the one that brings about changes in people's hearts and lives. And I am an instrument, and He wants to use me. And it's important for me to be faithful with what He has given me. But the one who does the work is God. And so it's my job to rely on Him, to rest in Him, to trust in Him, and to seek Him and pray and ask Him to intervene and to move and to keep transforming lives. And a few years ago, before I started serving here, the year 2015 was kind of just this year of misery for me. I didn't have a ministry placement. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I'd be able to keep serving in Costa Rica. Things were just totally up in the air for about a whole year, somewhere between a year and 14 months. And that was a very difficult season for me, and I really struggled to trust God in that time. And I was just kind of throwing a tantrum a lot of the time, and just like, but God, it's just so hard. How can I let go of these things? I felt like, how God asked Abraham to give up Isaac. And it's like, but this is the promise you've given me. Costa Rica is the love that you have put on my heart. How can you take that away from me? And God needed me to let go of even that for Him. And so now I'm saying, I want to make sure that I have learned this lesson well. And I do not want to cling to anything or to anyone. I cannot cling to Costa Rica. I cannot cling to Vida Abundante Heredia. I cannot cling to my role as small group coordinator. I cannot cling to my position as a member of the executive pastoral team. I can't cling to anything or anyone but the Lord. And so that has just been something that I just kind of felt the Lord re-emphasizing. It's just the importance of clinging to Him and seeking Him first in everything and trusting in Him, knowing that He holds my heart and He is my good Father and He cares for me and He loves me. And He's not, out there waiting to punish me or anything like that. He's a good, loving, caring Father. And so that's been a really encouraging thing to me too. And I've just felt Him encouraging me to seek Him more, to pray for my church more, to pray for small groups more, because it all has to be founded on prayer. I can work and I can sweat and I can try to do things, but my ministry has to be founded in prayer, and I'm definitely not there yet in that one either. I say that as a reminder to myself to be like, yeah, keep praying, right? And another thing I've been learning is to have more open communication with my team, with my coworkers, because growing up, I was one of the smart kids, and I hated group work, I hated group quizzes, because everybody was like, oh, well, Carrie knows all the answers. And so, people would never pull their weight, and I have high expectations, and so it was always just a recipe for frustration for me. But I'm learning that's not the way to work or live. If I want to have a healthy life and good relationships, I have to rely on others. I need to seek the counsel of others and their wisdom. I've been in Costa Rica for 10 years. I've learned so much, but I'm still very much a foreigner. There are things that I just don't get. There are other things I just don't like. But that's reality. And I have to learn to deal with it and accept it and keep pressing forward. And I can't do it alone. I can't do it alone there, and I can't, do it alone here either. Whoops, wake up. I need, there we are. I need to rely on other people. And, as daughters and sons of God, he says that we're a body and we function together. And we all have different functions. We all have different responsibilities. And everything that we do is important. And so me, if I'm a toe or whatever, it's good for me to be a toe because toes help us keep balanced. If you're an elbow, elbows are really good. They're strong and, they can help hold your arm up. And every single part of the body matters and is important. And so I need to be relying both on the body in Costa Rica, but also relying on the body here in the States that is praying for me and encouraging me and supporting me, because this isn't just me going and being a missionary. It's us together participating in the work of expanding God's kingdom. And so that's some of the life lessons that I've been learning, some of the things that God has been doing in me. I'd like to share just a few more things with you, and then I think we'll have some time for questions. I'd like to share a testimony with you. Oh good, the picture loaded. It's not the greatest picture, but there's a lot of significance behind it. I was at a baby shower a couple weeks ago, and this small group facilitator was sitting next to me, and she started telling me about what's been going on in her small group and all the ways that God has been working and just how excited she is to see all the changes that have been going on. And I was just like, wow, this is great. This is so good to hear, because I don't always get to hear that. And so it's really encouraging for me to have people sharing about what God is doing in their small groups. I remember when she started her small group a couple years ago, she said, I just want to keep it to my family. I don't want to open it up to other people because it's my family, and they can be kind of tricky people sometimes, and they're not very open, and I just want to share about God with them this way. And maybe someday I really hope that they'll start coming to church, but they're not very open, and so I just want to start working with them this way by starting a small group with them. And her family was amenable to being a small group, and so she's been meeting with her family regularly now for all this time, and the things that God is doing are phenomenal. And so the other day I said, Jessica, text me, tell me, like remind me, refresh my memory, because I want to be able to share with others what God is doing in your group. She sent me 11 messages summarizing the things that God has been doing, and I took notes on some of them. Her father just passed away from cirrhosis, and her mom had not spoken to him for 27 years. And before he passed away, they were speaking again. And so her family has been learning about forgiveness, the power of forgiveness and true forgiveness from the heart. And just other evidences of God's work. As needs arise, her family is praying together and seeking God about these needs, and not just saying, well, that stinks, that's lousy. But they're praying together, and when they meet together, they talk about God. When they learn of a need, they give, and they give generously. Their vocabulary is changing, using less rough language and using language that's more honoring to God. They're asking more questions about God. They're curious, and they're wanting to know what things mean, or how to go about things. And her mom is talking about God with, pretty much everybody she sees on the street. And her brother and his girlfriend have recently decided to start going to church. And so I just say, praise the Lord for that.
Amen. It's
so beautiful and exciting to see all these things. And this is just one small group of what's been going on. And, in my own small group, we've had, there's a girl that is doing a DTS with YWAM right now in Argentina, and another guy that is in Mexico for 3 months getting training with Child Evangelism Fellowship. And so God is at work, and he's moving in people. And so this picture here is this small group, not just meeting together, but it's their small group doing an outreach event together at a drug rehab center. And this is her small group praying for and ministering to these guys at the center. And I just find that so powerful to see how God is not only working in them, in their own lives, but also pushing them out to reach out to and bless others. So that is Jessica and her family's small group. Just a few other things going on. I'm still getting life coach training. In 2017, I did a 1-year certification program just in basic life coaching skills. And then last year I decided to get more coach training and come out with a more professional level of coaching, and I'm about a year into that now. And it's been really fascinating to learn, and coaching is really just listening to people and believing in them and choosing to see them as God sees them, and just asking thought-provoking questions and saying, I trust in your ability to hear God, and I'm just going to encourage you to take steps forward in that, whatever that looks like. So that's been really neat, and also quite time-consuming. And also, I'm still teaching at our Bible Institute. I just taught last month on the doctrine of God the Father, and that was really excellent. And this keeps on falling asleep. And last year, I taught the course again on inductive Bible study, which I really enjoy. I don't know if I'll be doing that this year. I don't think so, but if I have the chance, I'll do it again. Because I really enjoy teaching. I am my father's daughter. We love to teach and be able to share with others the things that we have learned. So I'm grateful for that as well. And now I have a giant long list of prayer requests. But I'm taking advantage of the opportunity to share them with you. So this is the executive pastoral team, and the woman in red was our head of the counseling ministry. She's actually the one that basically founded it so that Rudy would not have to keep on providing all the counseling for everyone in the church as it was growing more and more. It was just getting, beyond his capacity. And so she started the counseling ministry, and it's been a great blessing to many people. And she herself has met and counseled so many people. And she's actually a psychologist as well. So she hasn't offered free therapy, but she's offered high quality care for people. And she has a great gift of discernment and it's just really good at loving people. But we just did a big strategic planning thing last year and this year, and we've been working on figuring out, okay, what are the action steps? What are the next steps that we want to be taking so that we can continue to grow as a healthy, vibrant church? And it turns out that we feel led to have a head of the counseling ministry to be full-time. And so we said, hey, we'd like for you to go full-time. And she said, actually, after praying about it, she said, actually, I feel like God is leading me to step away. And so we had a goodbye for her just a few weeks ago before I left. And so there's a lot of bittersweetness for her in that, because she knows she's being obedient to God, but it's also really hard for her to step away, and we miss her, right? So one prayer request is to pray for God to raise up the next person that will be the head of our counseling ministry. We're working on starting several support groups. We're working on implementing Celebrate Recovery, and we're also hoping to develop a class that people can take that talks about freedom in Christ, and to really help people experience inner healing as they grow in their, relationship with the Lord. But also with this picture, I just want to encourage you, and not encourage you, beg you to pray for your pastors, to pray for your pastoral staff and your church leadership, because being a pastor, being on church leadership, on staff, is heavy stuff. It's hard stuff. You know, we sit around the table every Tuesday and we say, who are the people that we haven't seen in a while? What's going on with this situation? What's going on in this ministry? What are the other things that are coming up? What, how do we handle this? And it's a lot. And we know the work is the Lord's, and that He is in control of it all. But it's a really big, weighty responsibility. And so I just want to ask you to be praying for me and my coworkers, but also for you to keep Pastor Gary and even Pastor Jim in your prayers, because they are so greatly needed. They say that being a pastor is one of the loneliest jobs you can have, because when you're a pastor, everyone is coming to you, but who are the safe people for you to go to? And so, if you have a pastoral team, you can share with your fellow pastors or be some part of like pastoral fraternity or something, but you're also a really busy person, and so just trying to find a healthy life-work balance is often very challenging. And so, yeah, please just keep us in prayer. And they also say being a missionary is one of the loneliest things, so I need double prayer because I'm doing both, and it is indeed, it is challenging. And okay, who are the safe people that I can go to? Who can I just go to as my friends? And, because most of the people that I know are from church, because I spend so much time at church. And, thankfully I have some good girlfriends that I Skype with pretty regularly, and I have member Karen that I receive from the mission. And so thankfully I do have a pretty good support system. But also in Costa Rica, I make friends and then they leave. And then I make friends again and then they leave. And so that's been a challenge as well. In several cases, it's been fellow people from the U.S., but there's a missionary family that was serving in the Middle East for a time, and then they're in Costa Rica for a time, and then God called them to actually go and serve in Chicago, and I grew very close with them the year and a half or so that they were in Costa Rica. And when they left, I still miss sitting with them in church on Saturday nights. And now the girl that's one of my closest friends is Costa Rican. And I was like, oh good, I'll make really close friends with a Costa Rican and then they won't leave me. And now she is engaged to a guy from Mexico who's a missionary in Turkey. So she's going to leave me too. And so also I would just love for you to keep praying for me and for God to just continue to provide me with good friends and good support there locally, because with friends on Skype and everything, that's good, but it's different having people who are there. So that's another big request. This picture is just to remind you about small groups in my church and how we're working on developing this greater culture of small groups and just trying to get everybody on board and excited and committed to being in a small group. And so I would love your prayers for wisdom for me in that, for me to be able to help kind of spread and share that vision with my coworkers, so it's not just me trying to pull the weight alone, but for all of us together as a pastoral team, building that culture and saying, hey, let's move forward in small groups together. Yay, small groups! Yay, small groups! So continuing to develop that culture of small groups. And also prayers for me as I'm continuing to learn to let go, right? And needing to delegate, because the responsibilities on my plate are massive and I can't do it all myself, but I have a hard time letting go because I want things to be done just my way, just perfectly, you know, good type A. I am my mother's daughter as well. And so, well, but I get the meticulousness from my dad. Anyway, I would love your prayers for me as that as well, just for me to continue to grow as a better leader who cares for people well and is able to believe in them and encourage them and know, you know, how much to hold their hand and how much to let go. And, you know, it varies with each person because we're all different. But I love your prayers for that as well. Also, just for continued financial provision. Thankfully, I'm in a pretty good place right now financially, but Costa Rica is not. And actually, July 1st, we're about to experience an up to 13% increase in a lot of services and different things. So like with water and electricity and that kind of thing. And so life is about to get more expensive in Costa Rica. And it's not quite as complicated for me because I receive my paycheck in dollars. And the exchange rate has been in my favor. But for the people in Costa Rica who have their house payments in dollars, they're really suffering. And actually just the economy in general in Costa Rica right now is not great. There is a 12% unemployment rate now, and so pray for Costa Rica for sure, but also just for God's continued financial provision for me as well. And I just want to say thank you to all of you and to Emmanuel Lutheran as a whole. Thank you so much for the support that you provide for me. It makes a big difference. It's a huge, huge blessing, and it is a way that you are participating in the growth of the kingdom. And so thank you. With all my heart, thank you for your generosity. And speaking of Costa Rica, going through all sorts of exciting things, we are kind of facing this economic crisis and also just kind of a, you know, political, just all sorts of things going on. And the last election that we had, which was a year ago now, in February, it was very polarized, and in a lot of ways it kind of reflects the last election that we had here in the States, where it came down to two candidates that a lot of people are just like, this is all you have? And so the incumbent party ended up remaining in power, but it's a party that is deeply entrenched in scandal. This is the most atheistic government that we've had so far, and so very pro-homosexuality and all sorts of things. So far, abortion is still against the law, but the days of that might be numbered. So there's just a lot of things going on in Costa Rica right now. But exciting things are happening as well. We have a partnership with Saddleback Church. Saddleback founded the whole purpose-driven church model and that kind of thing. But basically just encouraging people to do what Jesus did and have healthy churches and just live life for the Lord. And about 15 years ago, Saddleback heavily invested in the country of Rwanda. And Rwanda has seen such transformation over the past 15 years. You know, it was in the wake of the genocide, and there were over 100,000 orphans, and I can't remember the number exactly, over 100,000 and perhaps even over 500,000. But there were just so many orphans left in the wake of the genocide. And now, or as of I feel like my facts are a little bit old now, but as of a few months ago, there were only 2 orphanages left open, representing about 500 orphans, because all the other orphans have since been adopted in that time. And that's through what Saddleback calls the Peace Plan. And it's basically the priesthood of all the believers and saying, hey guys, the work of missions is not just the work of missionaries. It is all of our responsibilities. You know, we are all to go and make disciples and to share the good news of Jesus. You know, we are ordinary people called doing what Jesus did wherever we are. And, you know, sharing his love, ministering to others in their needs. And so PEACE is an acronym, because pretty much everything Saddleback puts out is an acronym. But there are, they describe 5 global giants in the world. And so they are spiritual emptiness, selfish or self-centered leadership, poverty, sickness, and illiteracy. And so each letter of PEACE is an antidote to each of those 5 global giants. And so the P is planting healthy churches that promote reconciliation. And that's against the spiritual emptiness. And then the first E is equipping servant leaders. And that's, you know, the antidote for the self-centered leadership. Assisting the poor is the A. Caring for the sick. And educating the next generation is the E. And so Saddleback was in Rwanda for 15 years, and they made the model a little bit more, they learned how to replicate it, and it's now been replicated in 17 countries in Africa. And just recently they said, you know, we feel like our work is wrapping up here. We feel like we have done our part. We've worked really hard to not create a dependence on us, and so we just encourage people, you know, we're gonna start kind of breaking ties, encourage people to keep moving on and doing life, but we're going to kind of move on. And Saddleback set their sights on Latin America, and they spoke with their Latin America director and said, what country do you think would be a good model country to implement the peace plan in Latin America? And the answer was Costa Rica. And what church do you think would be a good model church that we could work with? And the answer was Vida Abundante Heredia, my church. And so now we have been hosting different leaders from Saddleback who've come down and starting asking questions. What's this going to look like? What are the needs? You know, the 5 global giants are essentially the same, but they manifest themselves a little bit differently everywhere you go. And so how will that look here? So that's really, really exciting. And so Pastor Rick Warren is going to come to Costa Rica in August, and he is also hoping to get an audience with the president to share with the Legislative Assembly, to meet with some business leaders, because what we're going for is a total transformation of Costa Rica. And so I would love to also have you guys be praying for that. And then, am I on time? 10 minutes, okay. The last prayer request that I have is just for your prayers for me regarding the future. This is my boyfriend. His name is Justin. We've been dating for about 6 months now. On Thursday is our 6-month anniversary. And I met him online through eHarmony, and God has just put the pieces together in such a phenomenal way. I'd love to just tell you that whole story, but the sum of it is, he lives 20 minutes from my parents, so he's getting to know them, they're getting to know him, and they love him. He already knows Spanish. He's been called to be a missionary in Latin America, and he loves the Lord, and he loves people, and he loves me. So I'm really excited. We are walking towards marriage together. No ring yet. That's going to be a while. But we're seeking God and saying, we want to serve on the field together. And so we're starting to ask those questions of my missions organization, saying, what will it take to go from Carrie serving as a single on the field to us being a couple serving on the field together? Ideally starting in Costa Rica. That's very much where I still feel my heart is, and he's like, yeah, let's do that. And so, so just for wisdom for the future for that, to know what will that look like? You know, will I maintain my role? Will that be different? So we have a lot of questions right now, a lot of really big questions. Is he going to need to get more, you know, education or theological training? You know, just what's it going to take for us to be able to be on the field together? But that is definitely our heart. That is the direction that we're moving in, and we're very excited about it. And so I would love to just have you be praying for us as well as we continue to journey forward together in this. So that's all the prayer requests. So I guess we have a few minutes left for questions if we're going to wrap up at noon. Is that true? There are more sweets, please. I brought them all the way from Costa Rica just for you, so please help yourselves to another or 2 or 3 on your way out. I have a few more prayer cards if anyone does not have one, and if we run out, I can order more. So please make sure you come and get a prayer card as well. And I don't know if we have any questions or anything before we wrap up. I know that was kind of a lot.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, one here.
I'm sorry. You talked a little bit about the political situation. Is it scary to live there or to visit there as tourists now?
No, it's not. Costa Rica is still very much one of the safest, most stable places in I think in all Latin America, but especially in Central America. I mean, everyone I know has been mugged, so you always have to just be careful, but it's not particularly unsafe.
You said everyone you know has been mugged?
But I have
they all
not.
survived.
Thank you, Jesus, and may it remain that way.
Okay, cool.
They all
But I
live
mean,
to tell about it.
You have to practice your city smarts, and just be aware of your surroundings. And it's better to not walk around at night, but yeah, overall, it's quite safe.
Any other questions? Well, we want to thank you and pray for your safety down there. Not that it's a terrible place, but anytime you live overseas and you travel and all the miles and trips and things like that. So we do want to pray for your safety and blessings on your work. Thank you.
Thanks for providing me with the opportunity to share with you all this morning. It's always a joy to be with you.